All right, welcome to another edition of the Hardwood Huddle, powered by backsportspage.com. With me, as always, is Lord Vader himself, Bill Ingram, the Jedi Master himself, Bill Ingram. And guys, show's brought to you by our good friends over at NBAshop.com. Get all your NBA fan gear at NBAshop.com. Click on the description below to help out our show and to help yourself out by getting the best gear available. Show your fandom to your team by going to NBAshop.com now. All right, Bill. So we just can't have a week of good, fun NBA basketball. We need to have the drama that goes with it.
Of course.
Following up on our show from last week, the news on Victor Wembanyama is not good. He's really, there's a lot of question on whether he'll even be back. But today, the news just broke now that Joel Embiid, as we record at 4:09 Eastern time on Friday, Joel Embiid has just been ruled out for the rest of the NBA season. It's not like he's played a lot anyway. Philadelphia's been on a downward spiral. But I think when it comes to Victor Wembanyama and Joel Embiid, the question more becomes long-term. What does this mean for their futures?
Well, the thing with Joel Embiid, he didn't like to play anyway. First, he was saving himself for the playoffs, and when he was doing that, his team got so far out of the picture, there was no way they were going to make the playoffs. Right. And then when he came back, he got benched because he wasn't playing well, and he seems to have some long-term type health situations that bring his career into question. And obviously with Wembanyama, that's a gut punch because he's a thrilling player to watch. He's good for the NBA, not just the San Antonio Spurs. The best case scenario for San Antonio is a lot like what happened when David Robinson missed us. And then they wound up with the top pick in the draft and then Robinson came back and they were amazing and won a championship together. But that's the best case scenario for San Antonio with Popovich already out for the season and maybe going to retire. Wembanyama out for the season and we don't know. It's a nerve-wracking time to be a San Antonio Spurs fan.
I think it's also a nerve-wracking time to be a fan of the teams that are probably maybe seventh place and down, because if you look around the league right now, seriously, injuries are starting to take over. Man, and the thing is, you don't want some of these guys going down the way they've been going down. And I look at a team, you take a team like the Spurs. You look at that and you're saying, okay, they got De'Aaron Fox, they got Wemby, Chris Paul. With Chris Paul working with De'Aaron Fox, already he's going to get an education.
Yep.
Because he's still a young player, he's still in his early 20s. But now that everything sort of gets put on hold.
Well, what you want every year, you want the players who are on the teams to be healthy and you want them to play every game and you want them to compete. And Charles Barkley had a quote recently about how, steelworkers go to work every day. Yes, you get sick and maybe you don't. You have a minor injury, you still go to work. There are a lot of guys in the NBA who don't show up to work every day. And when every game really does matter, people say, game 5 of the season doesn't matter. It sure does when there's 5 games left in the season and you're 4 or 5 games out of the playoff picture, or you're 4 or 5 games out of a home court advantage seed in the playoffs. Those games from late October and early November, they sure do matter. Mm-hmm. So when players are sitting out, when they're not really hurt, and we see this, I know they put a policy in place. They're going to get fined for this. They're not fining anybody, and it's happening just as much as it always has. So, it's an awfully tough position for a fan, for a team, for a coach, for a general manager to have a squad where key players don't play games. Now, when you add on top of that the actual injuries, it's debilitating. You look at a game a month from now and think about buying tickets, and then you get to that game and 2 or 3 of the main guys either are injured or they're on load management, and you're like, okay, why did I buy tickets to this game? It's ridiculous.
It's funny. I'm looking at the standings right now just to see who's hot and who's not. And if you're a fan who wants to buy tickets, you're now at that point in the season. If there's a team like the Cleveland Cavaliers who decide they want to rest a Donovan Mitchell, an Evan Mobley, or Darius Garland, it makes you wonder if it's worth buying those tickets. Now, real quick, the hot teams in the league right now. In the East, it's still Cleveland, winners of their last 8 in a row.
All season. Yep.
Yeah, all season they've been on fire. But here's the second thing. The second hottest team in a row right now with 8 in a row wins is the Detroit Pistons. And
Yeah.
they're a half a game back out of Milwaukee, and they're a game back of the Indiana Pacers for the 4th spot.
And just beat Boston.
Yeah. So, well, Boston will jump on in a minute, but I got to talk about the Pistons.
Yeah.
Man, if you're a Detroit, those Detroit Pistons fans, they're loyalists, man. They're loyal fans. When that team is good, they come out and support. When that team is bad, you hear crickets in that.
Uh-huh.
And that team is a good team, and it's going to be very interesting to see if they can get a 4. I want you to think about Indiana or Milwaukee playing in Detroit for the first round of the playoffs. Detroit's probably going to get out of that first round because they're that home court. Look, they're 16-13 at home. Don't let that number deceive you. They play much better at home than they do on the road. Milwaukee, who's ahead of them by a half a game, is 20-9 at home, but they're 12-16 on the road. Indiana's 17-9 at home, but they're 15-14 on the road. But Detroit's 17-13 on the road. So Detroit knows how to play on the road. So it's different. It's very interesting. Out of the 3 teams, Detroit, I trust with Detroit more on the road. That's a little scary.
There are a lot of parallels between 3 teams right now, and that's Detroit, Oklahoma City, and Houston. They built through the draft. They were bad, built through the draft, got high draft picks. They drafted well. They've developed the guys that they drafted, and then they added key veterans at just the right times. Houston did that last year with Fred VanVleet in particular, but also Jeff Green and Devin Brooks. And Detroit has done that with Tobias Harris. These teams that draft and then they have kids who go out there and like Cade Cunningham could put up numbers, but they weren't winning. Well, now all of a sudden he's understanding with guys around him who have been in the league for a while. They're teaching him how to win. And he has become a winner in a hardcore way. The same way that we're seeing Jalen Green try to be in that kind of role. Jalen Green is delivering big shots. Alperen Şengün is delivering big shots. And, of course, in Oklahoma City, they're another, say, year or 2 years down the line in that stage of development. And they've got all these guys who will make huge plays at huge times of game. And these are the kinds of teams I have always – it's the old school way, right? It's the old school way of building a basketball team. It's sustainable. It's long-term. And I love watching those teams play. The teams that are renting players or that have and have players that don't want to play through an injury, I think Paul George's comments about Philadelphia, I don't know how this ties into that, but he said, I'm going to stop podcasting because I want to focus on winning. I don't think Paul George's podcasting had anything to do with the struggles in Philadelphia, but okay. I'm surprised Tyrese Maxey didn't demand a trade at the deadline because he's committed to winning and he's approaching his prime and he's one of the best young players in the league. You could have gotten some draft picks for him, and they let him sit there.
But you know what, though? I'll look at the other side of that. Why would Tyrese Maxey request a trade, knowing that Embiid's situation, knowing he's going to be in and out of the lineup, and you're not going to have Paul George next year? He's entering the prime of his career. It's his team. It's going to be his team.
It's his team, but the guy building the team has never been good at building a team.
Yeah, well, right. Well, it's funny you say that too because we talk about guys who are not good at building teams. You look out in the West when Bob Myers stepped away from the Golden State Warriors. We were all wondering what Dunleavy was going to do.
Yep.
They're the hottest team in the Western Conference right now. The Golden State Warriors. I think last we were talking, they were flirting at the 10-11 spot.
Yep.
Now they're a half game out of the 6th spot. We're winners of their last 5. It looks like Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry and Draymond Green can play, and Jonathan Kuminga can play well together because it's working.
Well, at least for now, that's always with Jimmy Butler. So if he can give Steph one more shot at a deep run in the playoffs, mission accomplished. Okay, they've extended him. We all know by the 2nd or 3rd year of that contract, he will have lost his whatever he said it was his ability to know himself and whatever always happens with Jimmy Butler. But if that move. It was a dare to be great move. They had missed out on everything else. It was last resort. Kevin Durant didn't want to be moved. So Jimmy Butler gets Steph Curry back to the Western Conference Finals. I mean, they've got a couple of nice young kids on that team too who When you watch the Warriors play, there's no quit in them, and you're not going to get in the paint on them. And they're going to kill you with three-pointers as they've always done. And now Jimmy Butler gives them an edge the way that Devin Brooks gives Houston an edge. You just don't know. The West is still up for I think up to the number 1 seed we've talked about. I don't think anybody's beating Oklahoma City as long as they're healthy throughout the playoffs. No one's beating them, not in either conference. They're the best team in the league. But up to that number 2 spot, Denver was good for a while. Now they've stumbled a little bit. Houston had a bunch of injuries. They fell out of 2nd down into 4th. Memphis, they win some tough games. They lose some games. Like, there's no team that's consistently going to take over. There's a window for the Warriors to do that now.
Well, here's a question for you. And honestly, if you're Golden State, knowing what you have and what you're doing, do you rather play in the play-in and get that 7th seed and play a team like Memphis? Or do you rather the 6th seed and get Denver in the first round?
You know, I'd rather have Denver, honestly.
Really? I'd rather have Memphis because I just think that they're too young, and I think Golden State has too much experience, and I think that could be almost like it was against Sacramento a couple of years ago.
I'll tell you, though, Denver's not super deep, and Memphis is. And Memphis hasn't. They play with an edge, a real edge. If you watch them play, they have guys who are absolute beasts. Desmond Bane in particular, but they've got guys that will absolutely come at you for 48 minutes. And I'd rather play a team that's going to rely on Jokic and Jamal Murray being healthy, which is always a question mark, that's not as deep. I think if you attack Denver relentlessly, you have a better shot of winning. Trying to attack a healthy Memphis team, I would personally rather play Denver myself.
Yeah. Okay, I'll go with it. Just John Morant doesn't have that much experience in the playoffs. I just don't know, but I'll go with it.
But if John Morant's going at you versus Jamal Murray going at you, which one? I'll cover Jamal.
Yeah, I agree with you. And by the way, we're talking about how the Sixers are struggling. The Sixers have lost their last 9 games.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're done. Completely.
They're done. And we've been talking last week, with Brooklyn. Brooklyn had a great win against Philadelphia on Monday, got a half game out of Chicago. They fall to Washington, and then up 15 points in the third quarter on the Oklahoma City Thunder, and they end up losing by 12 points to the Thunder.
I was watching that game, and I texted you. I said, they're up 15. They're going to lose this game.
Yeah, I know.
And then they did. They lost it, right? Just as I had to switch over to the Houston game, that game was over. I was like, I've seen that a million times.
We watched the Lakers Dallas game the other night, and we watched Luka against his former team. When Luka is motivated, he is the best player in the league.
Oh, no question.
And he was motivated. And he was motivated the other night. He really was motivated the other night. But
he struggled to score, but he had a triple-double.
Yeah. My wife was watching. We saw Luka drive down the lane, just throw the ball over his shoulder to his teammate, and he nailed the 3. And I'm just like, man, he can really be the best player in the league if he wants to be. When he's healthy and in shape, he is the best player in the league. Not can be, he is. But and I don't want to hear all these stories right now that are coming about why they're trading him. Look, there's a plethora of reasons of why it happened. There was some bad decision making on Dallas's brass. I think if you had to make a choice right now, if you're the fan base and you're sitting there saying, who would you rather have, Kyrie Irving or Luka Doncic? You want Luka all day, but I want to see his durability with the Lakers. And also what happens when LeBron leaves and he's the man there, right? Like right now, LeBron being on LeBron's team, you have a buffer. You have a buffer with LeBron James being there. And I think that's the one thing that people don't want to really admit is when you play with LeBron James, you're giving yourself that buffer of if things don't work, it's going to be okay. As an impartial but interested observer of the Dallas Mavericks, I like Kyrie Irving an awful lot. He comes every night. He plays on both ends of the floor. He's in shape. and he's on his last court. And he's at his last this is his last chance. I think he knows it because he burned a bridge in Cleveland. He burned that bridge in Cleveland. He burned the bridge in Boston. He burned a bridge in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So he knows that if he burns that bridge again, people are not going to be going crazy to go try and give him another opportunity.
Right.
So I think that's the reason why he's playing so well. And now that Luka's gone, it's on him. It's all on Kyrie now. And I think that's the hard part.
Kyrie does make all of his teammates better. When you watch him play, he is at every bit a floor god as any other point guard in the league. Now that he's focused and all the conspiracy theories are over and whatever the stuff, weird things that were happening with him, he's been very focused in Dallas, and he's been great. And if I've said this a million times, and I'll keep saying it, Anthony Davis is not out for the season. We're maybe a week closer to that 2-week possibility where they said he could be back in 2 weeks. And if he's back in a week, like we talked about the West, if Anthony Davis is back and he can actually play for the rest of the season, Dallas will also be making some noise in the Western Conference. I've said it, and I will keep saying it until we get the news that Anthony Davis is done for the season. That may be inevitable, but until that is the news, I'm going to tell you to watch Dallas.
Yeah. Look,
that's because of Kyrie. That's why, Kyrie Irving.
I'm very interested to see how it's going to turn out over the next couple of weeks. As we get into the stretch run here, we don't have a lot of time left. We only got a couple minutes left on the show here, but let's the 5 teams fighting for the East play-in tournament. You have Brooklyn, Chicago, Atlanta, Miami, Orlando. Who's the odd team out, and who's going to be the 7-8?
I really don't see Chicago making it.
Okay.
They've self-destructed their roster. I just don't see it. I think Brooklyn is hungry. They have been much better of late, as you mentioned. Brooklyn's in. I think Miami has too much talent and too much coaching to not be in. Atlanta also had an injury, Jalen Johnson, out for the season. That makes it an uphill climb for them, despite how well Trae Young is playing. So the odd team out, to me, is Chicago. Orlando's even been playing better, finally, like with Chet. Ever since Chet came back, we thought they'd be better. It took them a while, but lately the Magic are showing signs too. But Chicago, there's your stock down.
Okay. And so you're saying the 2 teams that are going to be the 7-8 seed for the playoffs are going to be Orlando and Miami?
I think Orlando and Miami, yeah.
Okay. That's fair. I'm going to go with you. I think Chicago's going to be the odd team out. I think after seeing the Nets play Miami, I know Andrew Wiggins was not playing at that point. And I think Wiggins is going to have a little bit more success not being a main part of the offense because Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo, that team is in dire need of a point guard badly.
Yeah.
But I still think that, take my bias out of it, I still think that if Brooklyn can get healthy with D'Angelo Russell, Cam Thomas, Cam Johnson, them being at full strength, they can make a push the last month. I think they can beat 3 out of the 4 of these teams. I think
they can beat 3 of the 4 in a series for sure, but can they catch them and get past them? I mean, I'm not saying they can't, but you're talking about a lot. You're talking about guys getting healthy, coming back.
I don't want them to. No, they're not going to jump them. I'm saying even at the 10. So if they're number 10 and they're playing in the play-in, I think they can. I think they can beat Atlanta, and I think that they.
Oh yes.
And
I completely agree. Yeah, in a play-in, yes, absolutely, no question.
Yeah, I think, and once they get into the series, the team they need to match up against is the team they can't match up against. They need to match up against the Knicks, and they wouldn't be able to match up with the Knicks. I think they can get. I think they can get a game against Cleveland. I think they can get 2 against Boston.
Yeah,
and I think that's it. And finish up here with the West playing teams: the Warriors, the Wolves, the Mavs, and the Kings. And the Suns are far back. They're 3.5 back, and they don't have the guns to make this run. So you have to stick with the 4. So out of the Warriors, Timberwolves, Mavericks, Kings, I still think that the Warriors are going to jump the Clippers. I
do too. Yep.
So out of those 5 teams, who's 6, 7, 8?
So 6. I'm going to go Golden State. I think they're on the up. They're on the upswing. 7. Boy. I'm really tempted to go Dallas there. So much depends on if Anthony Davis comes back. If Anthony Davis comes back, I got Dallas in 7.
They're tied with Minnesota.
And if not, I've got Minnesota in 7. Because, you've got – I really don't understand why they don't win more games, because Ant-Man is – he's something else. So I'm going to go – if Anthony Davis gets healthy, I got Dallas in 7. If not, I got Minnesota in 7, Dallas in 8. And the odd team out is
Sacramento.
Sacramento. Yeah, Sacramento for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I look at that. I look at those 4 teams, or those 5 teams right there. I think 6 is going to be the Warriors, so they don't have to worry about the play-in.
Yep.
I think the Clippers are in, and I think Minnesota's in. I've watched Minnesota enough so far this year that I don't know how they're playing as well as they are, but they are, and they're figuring it out. Mm-hmm. So, and
the Clippers will be early roadkill. But there again, with the Clippers, is Kawhi Leonard going to play? Is he going to play every game? Is he going to play any games?
No, he's not. He's not going to play every single game.
Right,
he's definitely. I think if the Mavericks get knocked out, like if they get stuck like that, he's gonna falter a little bit.
Yeah,
he's gonna falter. So, hey, Bill, we want to apologize to everybody. This show is brought to you by our friends over at NBAshop.com and backsportspage.com. We're making a little bit of a shorter show this week. We'll be back next week as we keep breaking down and getting you ready for the playoffs and giving you the week that was in the NBA. You can follow Bill. Bill's all over the place. You can find me at Back Sports Page. But Bill, let's let everybody know where they can find you.
Well, if you follow me at The Rocket Guy on Blue Sky is where I am the most, because Twitter turned into whatever Twitter turned into. I am still there. It's a nightmare. I do check that one a couple times a week. I'm on Blue Sky daily at The Rocket Guy, either place. If you hit me up there, you'll know what I'm doing and where, because I post links.
Awesome. And of course, follow up with backsportspage.com and follow the Hardwood Huddle on all podcast platforms. For saying that, we will see you next week here on the Hardwood Huddle.